And when you know your own voice, when you've practiced, when you've failed thousands of times in your sketchbook and you're fearless to jump in with your skill, then you can fit in your own personal innovation and your own personal creative voice within the system that you're stepping into.
Yo everyone, it's me again, Jay Christ, and welcome to another episode of the Design Live Show. In episode 104 of TDLS, I sat down with Forest Stearns. Forest is the principal artist at DRAWEVERYWHERE, a design studio in Oakland that specializes in art direction, illustration, and the production of unique creative projects. Stearns also has a passion for producing artists in residence programs in companies that connect art, science, and technology. Currently, he is partnering with Google AI, Quantum AI in Santa Barbara to produce a unique AR program and create unique paintings around their quantum computers. In this episode, we talk about his amazing grown-up stories, practical experiences on how he was able to jump into innovation from being a traditional artist, how he was able to connect solution making and arts to solving a business problem, non-traditional art environments or blue oceans like aerospace and quantum, actionable tips for designer on creatively designing experiences, and much more. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I do. So we had a lot of great topics here, so I had fun talking with Forrest, especially learning more about his process and actionable advice for designers, especially for Filipino creative professionals out there. So hopefully you'll enjoy this and make sure you take notes what you've learned and try to integrate that into your creative and meaningful journey. Alright, so that's it. If you haven't already, follow the podcast on any of your favorite podcasting app and go to the designliveshow.com to learn more about it. Alright, so without further ado, I hope you enjoy this episode.
You're listening to the Design Live Show, a podcast that's helping everyone grow to live a meaningful and creative life. It's me, Jay Christ, a designer from the Philippines, best known for being an advocate of essentialism and optimism. I'm sitting down with awesome people to talk about their journey, their process, and the lessons they've learned along the way.
Hey everyone, it's me again, Jay Christ, and I'm super stoked right now. I've got an amazing guest here with the Design Live Show. So I'm super fascinated about his work, about his journey, especially, the creativity and the design in the design space. Without further ado, so I think I would just do the intro before we go to the actual conversation on the post production. But without further ado, Forrest is here. Hey, Sir Forrest, how are you?
Hey, I'm good, Jay Christ. Thank you so much for having me across the world. It's really an honor to be here. Pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah, it's always my pleasure to have some amazing guests on the podcast. So yeah, just to give a little context, just to anyone who are listening right now, especially who haven't heard you, who haven't heard what are you doing. Can you share a little bit about your background and what are the things going on your end?
Yeah, thanks for asking. My name is Forest Stearns, and I run an illustration-based artistic adventure studio here in Oakland, California. So we're in the San Francisco Bay Area in the bubbling heart of technology and startup land. Entrepreneurship seems to fall out of people's houses and drip down the street. It's definitely the common conversation of what's happening in a lot of businesses. And as a designer, as an illustrator, as someone who creates experiences for facilitating creativity and creative permission, I love to work shoulder to shoulder with scientists and entrepreneurs, technologists, to kind of dovetail where the beauty and the awe of art and the the beauty and the problem-solving nature of design meets these industries and these educational systems. So we kind of bring the best out of both sides of it. My background is I was a fine artist and a street artist first. I was always taken in by the beauty of illustration and how illustrators got to work directly with their clients and got to bring out the best ideas with their clients as designers, as problem solvers, as solution makers. And so I studied illustration second, got a master's degree in illustration, and constantly was on the practice, constantly was on the prowl for working with great people, always drawing, always producing work, super prolific with my team, creating community, having tons of art shows, crossing over between the fine art land and illustration land. And 20 years later, we're putting art on everything. We're putting art everywhere from spaceships, quantum, rocket ships, giant buildings. So it's really been a story about drawing a lot. My moniker is Draw Everywhere, and really getting down with bringing out the best in other people and other people's ideas. It's been about how do we make community and on our own team, and how do we celebrate community and cross the chasm between industries and silos and thinkings to create bigger communities and, just help people illuminate their valuable ideas.
Yeah, 100%. That's super cool. And before we go dive in on the, one of your works, which is space art, right? So I just want to learn more, Forrest, when you're just getting started, growing up as have you discovered your artistic skills when you're just, a kid? How is it? Can you share a little bit a background of your, of your childhood?
Yeah. Interesting question, Jay Christ. My childhood, I'm an only child, and I grew up in the country, up in the mountains. So east of the Bay Area, up by Yosemite National Park. That's kind of a landmark that everyone has seen pictures of if you haven't visited there. So I grew up right outside of Yosemite. It's definitely a beautiful natural environment, heavenly place. It smells amazing. It's nice and warm in the summer times. Definitely worth coming and visiting. So I grew up in and around nature. My parents were very much in the mindset of let's get outside, let's enjoy nature. Nature is our church. Let's really celebrate the beauty and the duende and the awe and the animism of everything around us. So my mom was a nurse and a self-made designer, and my dad was an amazing cabinet maker and a builder. And they still live in the house that I grew up in. They're really into horses, really into camping all the time. And so I spend a lot of time going up and visiting them. It's about 2-hour drive from here. And so my life growing up was a lot about being out in the woods, catching snakes, catching frogs, drawing everything, really creative permission. But they also taught me how to present my work and how to make work in the common conversation, not just fine art, not just emotional based art, not just art that needed to fall into art history, but how do I help create solutions for people? I was illustrating things in elementary school for folks. And so it kind of came second nature to me, but I was never really preened and primed to go to college. That was really my kind of kryptonite, because being from a small town, they were like, if you want to do something great with your life when you grow up, you got to figure out how to get to college. So
I'm connecting with that. I'm also from the suburb area of the Philippines. So basically, educations are, really costly, right? In the city, right? So they before you get a decent job, you have to really have a decent diploma as well.
You got a diploma, but you also have to be empirically trained as well. You have to be kind of fearless and lean in. So, my parents were all about getting me trained, but they weren't preening me for college. So I had to figure that out on my own. So I took the long path. But ultimately, I'm a kid from nature. I love nature, and I still get out in nature as much as possible. But I live in the city now because the industries that I love to work in and the people that I love to work with happen to mostly be congregating in big cities. So the West Coast is the best coast, and we get down over here. We do a lot of really big work, but based on nature. We wrap quantum computers based on nature. We put beautiful scenes on spaceships based on nature, always celebrating the awe and the duende of art and nature together. But now we're just putting that vivacious, bold mark in other spaces and other places. That isn't really, people don't expect it. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, I think that's super amazing, right? So I just want to, I'm super curious, Forrest, with in terms, you mentioned, when I'm listening to your to the things that we are talking about. So you mentioned solutions and art, right? So I think it's when I'm just getting started, I just wanna create some cool stuff. I just wanna make sure that it's pleasing to the eye, and sometimes it's kind of solution would just come after it, right? So as a designer or as an artist, we try to create beautiful things, right? And sometimes we forget the solutions part. So how do you connect those things? Because for me, on my when I'm just getting started, it's really hard, right? Like you mentioned, you have to learn it. How about your perspective about that? When you are trying to emerge on these solutions and art problem solving. Can you share your process with that, or any insights about that?
Yes. I think that's two-sided. Great question. Solution making, problem solving from the business perspective really comes down to four things, right? We're visual beasts. We are creating visual solutions for people first and foremost. And that's how people relate to things first, is with their eyes. We're basically animals that are trained on fight or flight. If it's beautiful, if it looks robust, if it looks full of sugar and sweet, we come up and right, like we want to approach it and eat it if it's good and sustaining for us. If it's scary, we want to run from it. We want to grab a stick and defend ourselves and our families from it. So
100%.
The visuals connect to the emotion. If we create something that's emotional, we have to drive that emotion rather than let it drive for us, because we want to connect with our people. It's got to be functional. Whatever we're designing needs to function within the space, or else it's never going to solve a problem. It's just a widget that's going to be a doorstop, or going to go in the garbage, or going to get erased in something else that's going to solve whatever problem it is, because non-functional things may be pretty for a moment, but they get forgotten about unless they have a lot of emotion and beauty. And then lastly, it's got to fit financially. It's got to be affordable within the space that we're creating it for. So when you're creating something for your design business, it kind of has to wrap around those parameters. The other side of that is the personal legacy of what's solution making. So my whole life, I've loved to draw. And thankfully, I've always had permission to draw in my life. And drawing has always been my drug of choice. It's always been the thing that I go to, even when I'm shy, even when I don't have anything to say in a conversation. I always have a sketchbook. So practicing has been the thing that has made me a great illustrator. Early on, I was drawing a lot. I got all the way to grad school, and in grad school, and I'll tell this to all of our listeners, if you don't go to grad school, do this one thing. Always have a sketchbook on you, and write down every single creative idea that you have. Write it, give yourself permission to whip out that sketchbook and write down that idea, so you don't have to have that idea again. That's how you create your own solutions and make solutions for your own problems that you're seeing in the world. Write down every solution that you see could be made with your design skills, and all of a sudden you'll have thousands of pages of solutions, great drawings, shitty drawings. You'll just be building and building and building on your talent every day. You don't need to make perfect drawings. So I got out of grad school and I had 20 books filled in 2 years. And my director said,
wow.
You don't need to write a thesis. You have shown that you have a thought process and that you are following your own path to create solutions because you have filled sketchbooks. And he said, this is what is going to make you a master. He's like, you got some great technique here at grad school, and you already came in talented, but the way that you will get super good for the rest of your life is writing down every idea. And you don't have to draw your ideas, because writing them is a different personal language. You can write them in different ways. Write them with, you can write them in poetry, or write them in prose, or write it in really technical talk. Like get it out of your head, get it onto paper, and then you can have a conversation with yourself. That's how you make yourself a genius, is by standing on your own shoulders. So that was how I got good, was by practicing every single day, hours a day, not just on perfect pieces, but on practice pieces, because practice makes practice, always trying to get to perfection, but we know we'll never get there, but we try to get there because it's really romantic. So yeah, man, know the rules of business, know the rules of practice, and you'll get there.
Yeah, that's super powerful, and thank you for sharing that. And I think with all this tremendous work that you are putting out there, right, and tremendous growth you are having right now. I'm just really curious, Forrest, when you're just getting started in traditional, right? So yeah, I'm really connecting with it because I love writing, right? And it feels like this is my own space, right? Nobody could take it, right? Even though my personal data is out there, but you can take anything that inside my notebook or inside my journal, and you don't have to be tech savvy about it, right? And
Yeah.
this is super traditional, and I'm just curious for us, for anyone who find it really overwhelming to really from traditional to more onto innovations, more onto digital. It's really hard to to connect this, right? In some point, for me, in some I think there's no such thing as a beginner. Every one of us will be a beginner in any level of our life, right? So how do you overcome this, right? When you're trying to transition from being a traditional artist, or I don't know if that's the best way to it's the best term, but and to jump shift to a more innovative, a more precise work, a more a solution based focus works.
Sure. I mean, let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
The idea of innovation. I was just reading a book last night as I was drawing a series of portraits for Verizon Media, and the idea innovation is really like you want to try anything because you want to get a new idea. You want to be acting without rules. You want to be irresponsible and playful. Innovation is playful. Innovation is what our kids do, right? You can't always be innovative, or else like you'll have paint on the walls if you're always innovating. You don't have an envelope if you're innovating. You want to have that innovative spirit, but you have to set up parameters. You have to set up rules for yourself in order to actually function. And so much of successful design is successful pattern recognition, is a successful lifestyle. As Patrick O'Connell says with the Profitable Designer, like you got to get your head right. You got to get your mind right. You got to get your body right. You got to get your time right. You got to get your day right. You got to get your process right. And then finally, after you got all these processes, then you can start being creative. Then you can start doing your art. Most artists don't start with process. They don't start with what systems are in my life that I can control and then be creative with. Like innovation doesn't need to happen in every single aspect of your life. Innovation only needs to happen in the very, very creative, loose part of your art side of your design work. And all the other stuff really needs to be more patterned, because the world works in systems. Like if the whole world was trying to innovate all the time, it'd be crazy chaotic. We'd be fighting each other and like eating each other, and cannibals, and it would be chaos.
Oh, dude.
But the fact that we have systems, like we have such a dope system that you can call me from the Philippines and we can record and talk to each other like we're in the same room. Like amazing systems. You and I could work together and collaborate on projects through the systems of communication and technology, right? 100%. Successful designers, we have to understand those systems and be able to work within them. And when you know your own voice, when you've practiced, when you've failed thousands of times in your sketchbook, and you're fearless to jump in with your skill, then you can fit in your own personal innovation and your own personal creative voice within the system that you're stepping into, because no one really cares about us as artists. They only care about the solution that they need with our technique, right? Like no one's going to come to you and say, Jay Christ, I'm going to put you in a museum because you're an amazing designer. They're not going to say, Forrest, I want to put you in a museum because you're an amazing designer. They're going to say, I have a solution I need, and you're an artist, and through you, we're going to get my solution in a museum. And I'm in a number of museums, and they didn't come to me because I'm great. They came to me because they wanted to be in a museum through me. And as designers, we need to know they can get to wherever they want to through us. We need to be okay with letting our own egos go and just being that solution maker for people. And yeah, that's really what I have to say about innovation. And it really comes down to trust. It comes down to the more you innovate in your own sketchbook, the more chaos that you can provide and the more creative permission you can have in your own sketchbook with your crew constantly pushing each other. That's when you innovate. And then when you get in front of a client, you're like, hell yeah, I'm tight because I've straight done it all already. Just in waiting. I've been waiting to succeed for you. So that's how I think that crossover feels to me.
Yeah,
And
makes sense.
I've crossed
Super
over
powerful.
to some really interesting places with that mindset.
Yeah, that's super powerful. Thank you for sharing that for us. And I wanna kind of connect when you say understanding system, right? So it's I've saw your TED talk, like the Space Art Dream Remix, right? So and I've watched it. It's super amazing. You did a great job on bringing value to those audience who you are talking with, right? And when we understand system, right? So it's pretty much what you call this. It's like you're free, right? Or but at the same time you have to follow some kind of commitment or rules, right? And can you share your space art dream remix, just to make sure for anyone who haven't heard that, right? So how do you came up with the solutions to bring your art to outer space, right? So I'm just super fascinated about that. I can't even think about it. It's blowing my mind right now. What's how do you do it? Well, and why you do that?
How do you put art in space? Well, that's a great question, and it is a beautiful 13-minute. It was learning how to give a TED talk was a piece of art unto itself. The primer before I gave a TED talk was I'm a very charismatic artist. That's the outfit, the uniform I wear when I'm out in my art. When I'm being an artist, I'm trying to be charismatic and I'm trying to let art lead. I'm actually kind of shy and introspective and introverted when I'm alone, but I need to be my best self. I need to be the gregarious artist and lead with creativity when I'm out representing the artists, as we are doing right now. And so I came from a background of putting art on a lot of things. I loved to paint big murals on big things. I loved to be draw everywhere. So I found myself talking to a gentleman who had a spaceship company. And this gentleman, his name was Robbie, gave a beautiful talk. We're out in the woods at a camp, and he was talking about the future of aerospace. And the whole time he's talking, I'm thinking, I wonder if anyone's ever drawn on a spaceship. I wonder if anyone's ever done that. And, I didn't really know much about aerospace, so I wasn't really diving in and connecting with the science part of it. I love a good sci-fi book. I love a good sci-fi movie. I grew up on that, but I didn't study this stuff. But I'm thinking the whole time, how can I apply what I love to do on what this guy does? And I've got my sketchbook. I'm writing down ideas, writing down what he's saying, voraciously drinking his knowledge into my sketchbook. And after he gives his talk, I say to myself, I need to ask this gentleman. And so I walked up to him through the crowd, through the questions. I said, "Hey, Robbie, do you know the World War II bombers that have the pinup girls painted on them?" Because that was the only piece of art that I knew he would know. It's kind of like graffiti on airplanes. And he goes, "Yeah." And I go, "Robbie, let's paint on your satellites." And instead of saying no, I audaciously just walked up and asked for permission. And anybody can ask for permission to anything. Like any of the artists listening to this, like I give you absolute permission, and I say go ask for permission to put art on what you want to, because the only thing you can get that's bad is a no. But imagine if you got the spaceship guy to say yes. This guy said yes to me, and all of a sudden I'm dreaming in my sketchbook, writing down great ideas. This guy says yes. And because I had drawn on 1,000 great ideas in my sketchbook and I had drawn on a lot of walls and failed a ton of times, I was just ready to make this happen. He said, "Show up on said date. Let's do this." And what I thought was going to be a little bit of art on one spaceship ended up being 5 years of being the principal artist and doing a lot of art direction and creative direction at a firm that was a very small firm at first. And then it grew to almost 500 people while I was there. And we put art on every single spaceship with a laser etcher. And I figured out a system to get art on spaceships that it wasn't paint, it wasn't Sharpies, it wasn't silkscreen, it was with laser beams. And then I was making big paintings that then we were making stickers and putting them on rocket ships. And then I would fly around the world to different radome spots and paint on radiodomes. You know, I'm down in New Zealand painting on radiodomes. Back to the practice that I was doing early on. Let's put art on things. Let's draw a lot. Let's practice. I probably drew hundreds of drawings before I did these final works. But because I did hundreds of drawings, I didn't need to show anyone. Like you just said, you don't need to show anyone you're writing. You just got to get it out of your head. I was ready because I did my artistic push-ups, you know, my artistic training. I was ready. And these guys didn't speak. These girls at the aerospace firm, they didn't speak technical art. I was definitely the most trained drawer, painter, designer, artistic designer in the room, but I was not the most creative person in the room. And that's something all of us creatives who wear the creative badge need to know is we may have studied design. We may be good pushing pixels, making vectors, drawing pictures, designing experiences, but we are not the most creative people in the room usually. You know, most people that are in the innovation space, entrepreneur space, technological space are also solving problems on a rapid pace, right? These guys were putting spaceships in the sky. These girls were figuring out how rocket ships get to space, figuring out how to make a business out of that. Like these are all really epic solution makers. I had to come with my A game. I showed up with a new way to speak the mission-driven language. And because of that, I always had a seat at the table. I bring out the best in people because I ask a lot of questions and I show up with my best work. So it's not just design talk, it's design action. You know, I make big, exciting pieces. I don't just show people my screen. I show people a 4x6 foot canvas or a giant mural and say, hey, let's take this. Let's bring this solution to you. And like, you know, back to Patrick, it's not about the art. It's about what problem can I solve for you? Here's some case studies. I mean, I reached out to you because I was really curious how you phrase case studies. And it is about how we make solutions so other people can get their solutions made with our design skills. Our art doesn't matter.
I love that.
It doesn't matter. It's the customer's need for the solution that matters. Our art matters for our sketchbook, you know, and for our community.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. So, but I want to tell you this. I got to the aerospace company. We had a great time. It was really awesome. It was really awkward, and it was really amazing and full of awe. You know, Did
you do some handshakes or fist bump?
100% handshakes at that moment. You know, pre-COVID, so we were in close proximity. But so the TED Talk, this is worth listening. This is worth talking about. I wrote a TED Talk and I had it down here in my studio. My studio is under my house in Oakland, and I had 1,000 Post-it notes across the wall. And a friend of mine who's a marketer came by, and she was a beginner painter, very hungry to paint. So she was over here getting painting lessons from me, and she looked at my wall and she's like, Forrest, what are you doing? And it's like, I'm giving a TED Talk. Aren't you proud of me? And she started reading through it. She's like, give me your TED Talk right now. And I was like, whoa, easy there. I'm not ready. She's like, no, you need to be ready. You think you're such a badass artist? Like, give me your TED Talk. And she straight like threw me under the bus. And so I gave her the TED Talk real quick. She said, Forrest, that sucked. I was like, what? She's like, Forrest, that sucked. She's like, you're telling a story about white dudes succeeding in Silicon Valley and patting each other on the back and asking each other permission to do tech things. Like, nobody cares. She's like, you need to tell a story that resonates with everyone. You need to tell a story that resonates with 50% of the people in the room are going to be women. No one cares about two dudes asking each other for permission and patting each other on the back. It's like, okay. So she's like, you need to tell an empathetic story about problem solving, about family, about the other part of your life. You know, you're a dad, you're a partner, you're educated. This was hard. Why was it hard? How does it relate to life? And what that really told me was no one cares about the speaker. People only care about themselves seeing themselves in the speaker. Back to people don't care about the art. They only care about seeing themselves in the solution that artists make, that designers make. And as soon as I had that epiphany, I was able to write my TED Talk in a manner for other people to see themselves in my struggle. And that's why it resonates with you. If it was just a like, hey, I did
super interesting.
I did great. I'm such a great artist. Check out my art. Blah, blah, blah. You'd be like, boring. But because I drew you into some drama, you know, and it was the hardest thing that I'd done in years giving a TED Talk. I didn't know how to give a TED Talk, to remember like 1,300 words.
Isn't that your first time or?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's out for real.
It doesn't look like your first time.
Well, thank you. And I'm honored that you even watched it. Thank you so much. It was a trying experience for someone. I mean, I'm a professional at turning my back on the audience and drawing and not having to look at the audience, right? I do a lot of live art and I don't look at the artist. I look at my artwork while people watch me draw. This is the first time that I had to take the mic and for 15 minutes straight, like keep people's attention on a story. Man, I thought multiple times in my TED Talk, I thought I crashed the plane. I thought I had failed my TED Talk multiple times. And I got to the end and people applauded. I thought I was going to get booed off stage, 100% in reality, because I screwed it up. But no one knows. I brought them through a story. I got off stage. I watched it later and I was like, oh, I guess I didn't suck. I thought I did. So it's really, permission to try, permission to fail and be cool with the failure and try again if you get the chance. And hopefully you will. So yeah, that's really, I started doing space art, not knowing what space art was going to be. We put art on hundreds of spaceships with laser beams and silkscreen, put art on rocket ships. And I was like, what's next? What can I put on next? Who can I work with next? And because I was the first artist of an artist in residence program that I created at the Aerospace Lab, I got poached by Google and they said, Forrest, come work with us. We're starting this interesting new venture with quantum computing. Come do what you've done at Planet Labs, putting art on spaceships, bringing out the culture in people, having it be solution-based, creative-centric, beautifully visual, beautifully emotional, functional, getting the team to show up for their own creative permission. Come do that with us. And so I jumped ship at right about the same time that I gave that TED Talk. And so for 3 years now, I've been working with Google's quantum crew, and that's down in Southern California, so about 5 hours drive from here. So I fly back and forth pre-COVID, and now I'm driving back and forth when I need to. And we've built out a big laboratory. We put art on a lot of things. We're making giant paintings that wrap around the quantum computer. And it's the same game to me. I just love to draw, and I love to bring out creativity in other people. And that's really has become my superpower. Like, I may be a good artist, and I'm down to battle. I'm down to do some artwork and try to be better than the next person. That's what graffiti taught me. But I also want to bring out the best in the viewer. I want to bring out the best in the solution maker that's shoulder to shoulder. And that's really what has allowed me to be a contractor on salary as a consultant for companies like Google, is the fact that I can, moment after moment after moment, instance after instance, is bring out the best in other people's creativity with my creativity, with my ideas, sit down and be a facilitator of creative team building and emotional connection and trust with my creativity. I want to spawn and drive not just innovation, but systems thinking and emotional based artwork through why I'm there. And because I have figured out that, now I'm on salary every month and I get a paycheck every month. It's not just like one in, do a mural, get it done, get out, or one in, do a logo, get out. I get to work with the people driving these programs and help them as a creative consultant because they need consultancy. It makes them better when they work with other masters. And so, yeah, as I've become my own master of my own field and craft, and I'm just started. There's a lot of mastery that I still have to have. When I'm 80, we're going to have this conversation and be like, where are you at now? I'll be like, I'm really at the now. But I'm 43 and I got family to also think about. So I'm not totally mastered yet. but we got a lot of ways to go. And thankfully, when you ask for permission and you do your best work and you bring out the best in other people, you get the option to show up at the table. So yeah, artist in residence programs have allowed me to hack my way in to the industry. It allowed me to have a seat at the table. And because I'm very diverse in my work, it's allowed me to step up and do vivacious stuff in front of folks. And that's really been fun. So yeah, that's my very long answer.
Yes, super interesting, mate. And I think you hit a lot of points there, and especially asking for permission. So, and in the Philippines, if you're introverted, shy, you just you just go with the system. In a day-to-day basis, it's like a normal thing that they you don't ask permission, right? So sometimes I realize when you are talking about these things, or maybe we should change the narrative a little bit, right? And maybe we could create more cooler stuff, more functional stuff and meaningful for the people around us, right? And not only for businesses or our clients, especially for the people around us or our family, right? And hopefully they would generate more curiosity, right? Generate more inspiration and breeds more creativity to the community, right? So super thankful, Forrest, for sharing that. And just shifting a little bit with in terms to your journey, right? And I'm really curious when you talking about this quantum computer, right? And bringing art to space, aerospace. I think there's a lot of overlaying fields here, right? Art, science, philosophy, I don't know, physics, right? All of this interesting stuff, right? That are, I think, like IBM, Microsoft, and Google are doing a lot of research about Google quantum computer, right?
Yeah.
And when a designer or when an artist, right, or want to work with this kind of stuff, what's your best practical advice for them to really bring the best work out there and to really help the clients or the business itself?
Yeah. I'm gonna let's unpack that. Let's preface that a little bit. I'm gonna ask you a question. What's your definition of art and what's your definition of design?
So art is like expressing yourself, and design would be probably problem solving. So that's I think that's the general term here, or general things.
And so art is expressing yourself. The situation when I step into a very scientific space, that the conversation may be very much wrapped around hard science. It may be wrapped around mathematical theories, physics, science ideas that are so thick and deep in scholastic knowledge that the outsider, there's an opaque sphere between the inside where the science is and the outside where the audience is. So there needs to be an emotional draw from that hard science to the audience. And the design side of that is it needs to be formulaically, systematically set up to provide ultimately the stairway, the doorway to get that audience through that opaque sphere. I mean, almost like brutally breaking the opaque sphere of the hard science for the outsider to want to be drawn in and to get in and understand at a base level. So I've created artist in residence programs to provide that doorway, not just to an outside audience, but to different team members. You may have a hard science team with people who actually need to be on the finance side of it, who need to be on the marketing side of it or the advertising side of it. They need to understand it and be able to grok that information without having a background in physics. They need to be able to sell the solution, make an ecosystem of sales out of it. So they bring in a designer and artist to help illuminate the idea. Like that's what illustration does. Illustration brings light to the words with pictures and pictures with words. It's the middle ground. It's the creative space in between the art and the design is why I love illustration, why I love to be an illuminator. And so my design studio is built around 3 pillars. It's built around one, that illustration pillar. I studied illustration. I was always an illustrator. Even when I was doing fine art, I was illustrating things, based on my love of comic books, graphic novels, Japanese woodblock prints, graffiti, street art, graphic design, epic graphic design through the ages. So I studied illustration and I love illustration. I love to draw. So I technically am a very good illustrator in my style. My second pillar is live art. I bring that illustration form outside of my sketchbook, outside of my studio, and I do a lot of live art at conferences, for events, being the person who's illuminating the common conversation idea in front of people in more of a theatrical, facilitated manner. So people see it as, wow, you're speaking our idea in a more exciting way that we could even know how to speak it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I am the example with live art. And that allows me to be in front of people that have never been to my studio or would never go to my art show. Like all of a sudden my artwork's in front of them and they can't not look at it because it's designed in a manner that's brutal. It's abrupt. It's powerful. It's graphic. It's everything that I want it to be, because I know about focal point and about contrast and about, drawing your eye and putting your eye where I want it. I can tell the story that I want you to see because I can visually sword fight you right into a spot where I can, parry you and succeed and win. The third pillar of what I do in my studio with my crew is we create artist in residence programs, like I just described at Google and the aerospace firm. We create these programs so we can be shoulder to shoulder and have this vivacious, traditionally artistic experience next to them having their traditional scientific experience. And we can trade inspiration back and forth. And I can do a big piece. Personally, I'll be doing big paintings and I'll fail and they'll watch me fail. And then they'll see me succeed a couple hours later. They're like, wow, Forrest, I thought you just crashed that painting. I thought that was done. You were really at that 80% ugly point, but you added 20 more percent and now it's fresh, it's tight. And then I asked them, I was like, show me an example of where you're failing and you want to succeed. I've had so many people pull me over to their computer and show me the code that they're writing, show me the table that they're hacking and making this piece of hardware or writing this software or making a spreadsheet even, a financial spreadsheet. They're like, I can't get past this problem, but I just saw you fail, so I'm inspired to succeed in new ways. I don't know how to write Python code. I don't know how to make, write or get in a CAD program and produce a spaceship parts. But the unique part of that is the practice, is the trust that you can get from point A, which, is the start point, to point B, which is the medium part where nothing looks great, halfway through, to point C where you're like 80% and everything looks shitty and everything sucks because it's not quite dialed yet. Everyone who is trying to succeed goes through these steps. Us artists, we may do it on a more wild, weird, abstract manner, but scientists are doing it too. A solution isn't made till it's done. It oscillates between good and bad all the way through. And when they watch me fail, they have permission to fail. And then we can succeed together through pushing through and getting to that point. I've had so many people come over to me and say, thank you. You inspired me so much with this painting. I'm like, are you going to paint now? And they're like, no, I don't want to paint. I just want to go be creative in my own solutions. And so that makes, I had nothing, the artwork had nothing to do with it. It was really about like, how did I show up next to them with my best work and their best work? And together we push to a new level. It's almost like the innovation is in the conversation, like that newness is in the conversation. And we're able to throw things at the wall and see what sticks together because they're seeing me fail and they can fail and then we can both succeed. So those are the 3 verticals at which I really stand on, the great art, the connection of art through facilitation, and then the connection of a solid conversation that's more that's a long-term conversation. Artists in residence programs, I'm in 3 years with Google, and I'm still the primary artist in residence. We haven't even brought in another artist because of where the laboratory is, where the conversation is. We're in middle of COVID. We can't bring people into the lab. So I'm the principal artist right now. I'm excited to bring in the next artist, but we're in no rush. But an artist in residence could also be 3 months or even a week or two, depending on the space. It's all about getting shoulder to shoulder and pushing each other to succeed. So yeah, those are my verticals. And that's how I feel like I could enter any space and have this conversation, whether it's a business and marketing and banking and insurance and fully fiscal situation, or whether it's, my kid's first grade class. I can come in and draw the best out of people.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I need to stand on my own technique and my own skills. Absolutely. We all do. Like, don't try to show up if you're not good. Ask for
I love the part that you've mentioned, like building the trust, right? Especially for if you don't have any technical background within terms to your colleagues, right? Or if you're working on something that, there's different fields, there's different terminologies or jargons, right? And I think you mentioned it better, that you have to really trust the process, right? Fail fast and fail forward, right? So to really hone or develop that solutions that we really aiming for, right? So thank you so much, Forrest, for sharing that. And before we wrap up this podcast session, so actually I'm just wrapping up my head to all the things that you mentioned. These things are really a massive experience for me, really an inspirational, really learning experience for me. And I just wanna make sure that I would ask this, right? So all throughout your journey, right? You're now a father, right? A family man, a very successful man, right? So you have tremendous work out there, super awesome work out there. All of these stuffs, right? What when I don't know if you have any struggles, right? Or what are you well, what's the biggest struggles, and how do you overcome it?
Yeah, and good question, Jay Christ. The struggles. So I'm going to tell a quick story and that illuminates this. So when I got done with grad school, I was still a small town kid living in the city, trying to do big things. I knew how to do live art. I knew how to do work that was visually impactful, but I didn't know how to play that game. I didn't know how to get it out there. And I got a job doing live art for the company DeviantArt. You may know DeviantArt. It's an online community, beautiful online community that kind of was a precursor to even MySpace and Facebook. And now it's kind of the beautiful old school community that is still around. I eventually became the art director of that brand. And through my audacity of doing live art and my ability to drop in and technically be a good artist in any form that they threw at me, whether it was digital drawing or large graffiti or making posters or whatever, I just kept saying yes. I just kept asking for permission to do more. And all of a sudden I'm designing the shirts and director of the brand. And the thing that was most powerful in that experience, it was me breaking through the struggle, was they wanted me to be the rock star of the website. And, it was like 30 million people. It's like, how do you be a rock star of 30 million people? You can't speak to 30 million people. So I had to step back and step back and step back. Said, what's the universal nature of all of these beginner artists and all these established artists in like 2,000 different fields of art? To me, the heartbeat of all of us was practice. And so I put on my practice, truly my practice badge, and started building the whole story about the struggle of practice. That's what makes us all the same artist, is if we show up to practice, then we will all be good. If we help each other practice, then we'll all be good together. So the first struggle was realizing that we're all not great to begin with, but through dedicated learning and dedicated practice and reading a ton of books and emulating and stealing great ideas, we will become great designers. Through practicing and understanding business, we'll be able to apply that into the bigger world by, you're providing such a rad service by asking people questions and bringing out stories of successes and struggles. So that was when I realized that practice was bigger than anything. Practice is the most important thing as an artist, to realize that by practicing, you get better every single day. 1% growth every single day. In 100 days, you'll be 100% better. Like, that's epic. So
yeah, 100%.
Some practice. And so now, I'm 20 years past being a professional artist. I'm deep in this. I'm 12 years past having a master's degree in illustration. I'm deep in having art all over things that I never knew. I didn't study how to put art on spaceships. I figured it out because I asked a ton of questions and I showed up and did my best work until I got to that point. And now I'm putting art on quantum computers, and I'm not stopping. I'm not stopping that learner's mindset. What's the biggest struggle for me is being overstretched in my offering and not having enough arms to do all the work quick enough. And not having the bandwidth to be like the tertiary person to tell the story about what's happening in my studio, the process shots, the case studies, the social media stories, in order to keep the story up to date and fresh. Like, it's just me. I'm a one-man army in here. And when I do big projects, I hire a team, or when I do artists in residence programs, I hire a team of folks to come be those artists. But, I'm a solo entrepreneur in my studio, rocking every single day by myself. I'm an only child. I'm used to being alone, and I love the solitude. But I wish that I was better skilled at telling my story on a more, up-to-date manner. So, maybe I'll hire you to help me out with that, because you seem to be really good at that. I urge people to have a collective of people that can help each other out, push each other, drive each other, hold each other accountable. My struggles are usually helped when I ask my partner, Tori, who is a very creative person, but she's not a traditional artist. I'll say, hey, how do you think that I could solve this problem? And she'll tell me a solution that's like so poignant and so on the nose that I feel like she punched me, because it's like so straight up. I'm like, oh, of course. Why didn't I think of that? I was in my design mode. I was in my art with my art hat on, trying to be all touchy-feely. And she's like, just do it this way, man. Like, stop being stupid. She's like, you've got a great idea, great talent, but like you're too hard. Just tell them this story. And I'm like, oh. So my struggle is always helps me get through every struggle by asking permission. Helping my kid through art projects. I have a 7-year-old, and she's a much better artist than I'll ever be, because she's fearless. Sitting down with her and painting and drawing with her, I'm like, let's draw some monsters. She'll draw some epic monsters. I'm like, oh, I should have thought of that. I've drawn 1 million monsters, and I've never drawn one that good. So I'll stand on her shoulders and I'll be like, can I borrow that idea? And so it's all about being in conversation. Jay Christ, what's your biggest struggle right now? What are you working on? What are you trying to get through?
You're asking me, right? So right now, so actually, it's like, I don't know if you've heard this term, like vivid mind eye. So I don't see any challenges right now, right? I feel like it's a long journey ahead of me. It's an everlasting journey. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm trying. I think one of the biggest struggles that right now that probably I've overcome for the past 4 years of building this podcast, building this life, or designing the life that I really want, or really need, is it's like I think it's being overwhelmed with a lot of things, a lot of informations are going in and out, right? And I have to discern, right? So I have to develop the skill set of discerning. So, and luckily I navigate that part, and I think that's the biggest struggle. Discerning is kind of the next generation skills that everyone should master.
Yeah, that's a really good point. To me, it comes down to concentration, discrimination, organization, and innovation. in communication.
Mm-hmm.
So like those 5 things, if you can mix them up, the concentration is crucial. That's a
Gotcha.
thing. But the discrimination, the discernment of knowing where to point your energy and where not to point your energy, like that's a skill that we don't.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We don't. No one teaches us that. But it's the beauty of efficiency of a system that we have to learn in order to be successful designers of solutions. So yeah, good point. What got you into podcasting rather than just being a pixel pushing designer? Like why podcast?
I don't know. It's still a hard questions for me, but with that being said, I think it's trying to I think there's something beyond on my works, right? There's beyond it's beyond making stuff beautiful. It's beyond making functional experiences, meaningful experiences. It's beyond making money as well. And I don't have words for it. It's like just trying to connect with a lot of great minds at the same time. Probably contribute on my passion project, with my passion project, right? With the podcast, with the things that going on with in terms to my personal journey, right? Or building a brand or building a business, and then try to transcend those snippets of insights, that practical insights for anyone who has a struggle as well, like me, right? Or anyone who has these rabbit holes right now, right? And then probably they could loot or get some piece of advice from the podcast that I've made or episode that I made with some of the great creatives and entrepreneurs, right? So
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
that totally makes sense. Do you recommend?
Uh-huh.
Do you recommend that artists make a podcast so they can find this journey for themselves? Like
100%. So
Yeah.
I think it's really for me. It's hard to find your own space, right? It's really, really hard, especially there's a lot of great people out there, awesome people, great works out there. And then at the same time, life would happen as well, right? Financially, in business side, right? So, and I think when you're doing some podcasts, right, it's like you're transcending some useful insight from your useful self, right, or meaningful self or meaningful experiences that you are having right now, and then try to communicate that with your previous self as well, right? And then probably those previous self would be someone who are just getting started, right, or would be someone that who was shy like you, right? Something like that. And it's really hard to find some words for it. So but yeah, I think that's the most piece of answers that I could share. So yeah. How about you, Forrest?
Yeah.
Do you are you thinking to really make more updates with in terms to real updates with in terms to your works and your career, beautiful stuff going on with your studios?
Well, that's a great question. And I want to dovetail that with what you just said. I wanted what you just said to be my question, but you jumped into it. Yes. Should I ask my question first? What I want to say to that point is I find podcasts so beautifully human. I find podcasts
100%.
Like viscerally what humans do. We are for so many millennia, we were tight groups of people that organized with like 100 people or less, 200 people maybe if there was good times, and we would all really be sitting around fires, trying to be safe, trying to be warm, telling each other stories. Like it's in our DNA to sit around, be safe, tell each other stories, and then go gather food and like try to keep the tigers off of us with sharp sticks and go out and gather food. For millennia we did that. We weren't writing things. We probably weren't having very deep stories, but we had these big ideas that we were constantly sharing with each other. And podcasts and even things like Clubhouse connect us to that human nature of storytelling, which I think is so beautiful, and it is transcendent of whatever thing you're studying, whatever business you're in, whatever institution that you're repping, or academia sector that you're pitching, right? Telling stories is the universal human thing. And so podcasts are great. And I'm really finding that I have a desire to make a podcast. I want to make my own podcast to tell the stories of what's inspiring people in the artists in residence programs that I'm making. Why
that would be interesting.
I want to interview the artists next to the scientists and really bring out the individual stories of the kind of the illustration, the illumination story that I said about working together and shoulder to shoulder and pushing each other to solution. Like, I want to tell those stories, one, because I think it would be
for sure.
Case
I want to hear that as well, right?
Yeah.
As a human being, right? So, and actually, to add on your super useful points there, Forrest, I think when you do podcasts, you don't have to be perfect, right? So, and I think when I'm here, when I'm in my studio or home studio, it's my own space, right? So perfectionism is not exists here. It's not existing here. You could, like what you mentioned before, you could fail a lot, and then get to a lot of rabbit holes, right? And but after that, at the end of the day, you'll get a ton of learning experiences, a ton of meaningful conversations, right? And not only for your audience, at the same time for yourself as well, because sometimes I do solo podcasts, right? So I'm kind of talking to my previous self, right? And then trying to transcend that, and then hopefully that previous self would learn and then apply this future self or a future self of mine. So basically, it's like dreaming, living a life, right? Or trying to make something useful as much as as much as possible. Because I just realized I just had a birthday yesterday, so I'm 30 now, right? So there's a lot of good stuff that I want to make as well, right? And hopefully
happy birthday,
help
man.
the
That's
community.
beautiful.
Thank you, man.
That's beautiful. You're a wise 30-year-old.
Thanks,
You're
man.
like guru of storytelling. I really appreciate where you're coming from.
I'm an old soul. Yeah. So I feel like I feel like I'm 60 years old now. But
enjoy 30.
I don't know why. But I'm trying to, I'm trying to stay young, grow old, but never grow. I'm trying to make sure that, I still pursue what I want to pursue as much as I can. So,
I have a question for your old soulness. So, in your look at what I do, and your look at my business, what words of advice do you have for me? What do I need to do in order to level up? What words of advice would you have for me, so that the listeners right now could be like, oh, dang, Forrest does need to do this, and I could do that. The audience could do it too. Like give it to me. Give me a little critique of what I'm doing that I could do better.
Oh man, that's really hard because, but for me, I think I would go back to my journey when I'm just getting started. I think what I'm asking about on that specific timeline, when I'm trying to really hone my skills, because back then I'm more on the programming side, right? But I try to jump ship into more of the speaking side of me, right? And or writing, right? So, or honing my writing skills back then. So I think questions that I've asked to myself back then is, can I do it practically, right? Or can I do it even though that I have a lot of projects on the side, right? So And I think a lot of it boils down on practicality, right? So if it's practical, if it's this tool would be practical enough to for you, for your business or for your career, so just try to, just try to align that to what you are doing, and then try to share your journey, right, without the ego. So and then, hopefully it would create a balance with in terms to your career, family life, and if that makes sense.
Yeah, and
So
I'm always looking for ways to grow, and always looking for ways to stand on my own shoulders and the shoulders of others who I'm in story with. So thank you so much.
for sure. So
for
I
that.
think at the end of the day, we just want to document our journey here, right? So, and hopefully it would be useful for when you're let's say you're a caveman, right? So you try to sketch something that, and probably the next generation would see that, right? Something like that, and it's a history, right? And hopefully that would be similar to what we are doing, and just documenting our journey. So yeah, Forrest, thank you so much for that questions. So I'm taking my back. I'm taking my interviewing and interview seat now, right? So I'm the interviewer now.
Okay.
So go. Thanks, man. Thank you so much for a lot of great stuff that you've share. Awesome stuff. I think all of those, useful tips are super powerful. And before we go to the last questions that I wanna ask you, can you share a little any tools that you want to share for designers or artists out there? Well, what's your recommended tools that you are using?
Interesting. You mean tangible tools?
Yeah, tangible. Yeah.
Yeah. Always have a 5x8 dotted sketchbook with you. Always have your sketchbook with you. Always have a pen that ideas have permission to spill out of you in ways that you don't need an eraser. You don't need to edit. You don't need to spell things right. You just need to practice. I love dotted notebooks because I can write beautiful script, beautiful handwriting. I can practice my handwriting. I can draw graphs, but I can also draw illustrations and then scan it and, in Photoshop, edit it out. I'm very prolific and very good at manipulating and making my designs digital through Photoshop. I'm a drawing-based artist, and I do a lot of tightening up drawing on Photoshop and in vector programs, Illustrator and whatnot on my iPad. But also, know how to scan your drawings and how to clean them up in Photoshop so you can deliver a finished digital piece that still has the integrity of your drawing. Understand Photoshop is a huge tool. I've got a Wacom tablet. I've got, these other design tools that help me out make more clean drawings. But sketchbook, understanding that having a sketchbook and writing down every single idea you have, always doing that is the best tool that I could possibly give anyone. Come to my studio if you're in town, and I'll give you a sketchbook if you don't got one.
Yeah, I would happy to have a sketchbook from you. How about books, Forrest? Do you have any books recommendation for anyone who wants to draw a line with in terms to what you're doing right now, aerospace, science, arts, physics?
Yeah. I mean, my favorite books, I listen to audiobooks endlessly while I'm drawing. I'm constantly listening to audiobooks. So, to your point, a great physics book is You Must Be Joking, Mr. Feynman. A beautiful business book is Own the System. That's a super epic systems thinking book. A great psychology book is Psycho-Cybernetics is a psychology book about keeping your brain fresh, keeping your practice optimistic, leaning in. That's one of my favorite books right now. Let me go through. I'm pulling up my audiobooks.
Yeah,
I
gotcha.
love a good sci-fi book, man. I love a good sci-fi book, but I have to give myself the structure of listening to a business book and then a sci-fi book,
Uh-huh.
and then a design-centric book and then a sci-fi book. I can't just listen to sci-fi. Like I can't just do that,
Yeah,
or else I wouldn't learn anything.
gotcha.
So the book Sapiens is phenomenal. It's a great book about humans.
Mm-hmm.
The book Scrum, oh my God, that book helped me so much
Yeah.
being a time system thinker, like how to
Oh,
build my
yeah.
systems and thinking. Oh my God. So good. Mindset, books about mindset. Oh, An Astronaut's Guide to Life. I worked in aerospace.
Mhm.
So this is an astronaut, a Canadian astronaut, Chris Hadfield, and he teaches the philosophy of be number zero. Always be
Interesting.
always be supporting the success of those around you, because if you support the success of those around you as zero, not number one and not even number two, but by supporting those around you, you will be supported too. If the common conversation is uplifting and going forward, you can always have permission to be in it if you support those around you. If you always are trying to be number one, you're always cutting down someone else. And so that's a really beautiful piece of the philosophical book, The Four Agreements. Solid book. But the one that I want to give to you right now, I just started this one yesterday while I was reading, and it's got a funny name, but it's called The E-Myth Enterprise: How to Turn a Great Idea into a Thriving Business. And man, this guy's got some gold nuggets. So terrible name for a book, really good book, a little bit dated, but like solid. So yeah, I read every single day. We could talk about this all day long.
Yeah, for sure. I will add that on our show notes below for anyone who are listening right now. So maybe Forrest, you could send the list of it, and I will add that on our show notes below, right? And then I think that's it, right? So there's a lot of golden nuggets already you've shared, and hopefully you've enjoyed the podcast session with me, Forrest. I'm super thankful. I'm super grateful to have you on the podcast. I think you're very busy. Thank you so much for dropping by. So before our last words, hopefully not our last words, but but before we end this podcast session, in bird's eye view, right? Let's say you're a bird flying in the sky. You see this beautiful sceneries, beautiful people, beautiful human beings. And you see someone who is struggling, let's say, struggling to find their purpose or find their passion. What's your best practical advice for them?
Just go talk to them and ask them what their biggest dreams are. Go buy them coffee, go get warm with them, next to them, show some humanity to them, and ask them about them, and then help bring out their best in themselves. We can't help everyone in the world.
Gotcha.
Of people, and I just don't have that much money in my pocket to give all my money to everyone all the time. But what I can do is I can bring out the best in people by asking them about them, and then they feel seen and heard, and that's how we help people, is by making people feel seen and heard. I mean, Jay Christ, you're doing this
100%.
You're bringing out the best in people and bringing out things about people that they didn't know they wanted to share. So thank you. You're
man.
Example. So thank you.
Thank you, man. Yeah. So thank you so much for that, man. Thank you so much. That's really means a ton. So if they want to learn more about your works, and if they have any questions on anything that you are doing right now, or all the talks that we've talked. I know all these awesome conversations. These awesome conversations we had. So what's the best links that they could reach you out?
Well, DRAWEVERYWHERE.com is my portfolio website, and I am not looking really for new work right now. So I have a portfolio website rather than a funnel website. But feel free to check that out. Check me out on Instagram, more of kind of a personal story, DRAWEVERYWHERE Studios, and you can get in touch with me through my website, and I'm always down for the conversation. If you're in Oakland, let's have coffee. Tell me about
sure.
Any of you listeners, you're around. Let's have coffee on the weekend, because that's when we have time to socialize. And let's collaborate. Let's draw together.
Let's
go together.
Yeah. DRAWEVERYWHERE.com. So that's DRAW. I don't know what I'm doing, why I'm doing this, but DRAWE Victory ERY WHERE.com. So draw everywhere. So I'll put the links on our show notes below, including the IG, right? Handle of Forest on our show notes below. To those who are listening right now, make sure to scroll down, right? That not just too much scroll down, please. Don't scroll down too much. Just you could learn more about this conversation. Probably I'll add the summarized version of this conversation and all the things that we've mentioned here, like the books recommendations and tools for anyone who are listening right now. So I think that's it for us. Thank you so much, man, for dropping by on the podcast, and hope you enjoyed the podcast session with me.
Oh, I absolutely adored it. Thank you. I'm going to jump to another meeting. It's the beginning of my day. J. Christ, have a wonderful night. Have a wonderful sleep. I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you for appreciating the art and living the creative life. You're doing great work. I appreciate you 100%.
Super grateful for us. Thank you so much.
Peace.
And that's it. So thank you so much, guys, for listening again to the podcast, and I really appreciate it. For those people who are asking me on how to support the podcast, you can leave a review on Apple Podcasts. So in that way, you can help me to reach more people and make the podcast more discoverable within the ecosystem. You can also take a screenshot of this podcast and share it with your friends, colleagues, or to anyone that might be interested in this kind of contents. You can also support the podcast monetarily by visiting jchristteves.com/donate or patreon.com/TDLS. And you can also shop courses and tools online to design the life you really deserve by visiting my shop at shop.jchristteves.com. And you can book a call today. I don't bite, just let me know, guys. So the last one would be also by listening and to all the podcast episode and previous episode. And however you support my message, however small that is, more than enough, and it means the world to me. So thank you so much, and see you again next time.